When you thought the political season couldn't get any more upended, Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg died a couple hours ago. And if you think this election was already going to be a cluster, you know what? It's going to be even more. I mean, it couldn't have happened. And by the way, it's, obviously she was whether you liked her politics or not, she was an impressive human being, and it's a loss. But I'm telling you, the 2020 election just got thrown into a whole new paradigm shift. And I've got an amazing guest with me today. She's Black. She's a woman. She's a Hollywood celebrity. And wait for it. Yeah. She's a conservative. She's a huge Trump supporter, and he's a huge supporter of her. Joy Vila's with me. It's Rob Nelson Live.
Meet Rob Nelson, talk show host.
Because you got the 70s thing going there. My name's Rob Nelson. I used to have a talk show on Fox, a show on Fox News. But news in America is so produced. I don't care if you think it's left, right, center, fake.
You passed tougher legislation to deal with the paparazzi after what happened with you and your family.
I think it's very important that we focus on rebuilding.
Hey, everybody. I'm Rob Nelson. This is Rob Nelson Live. All right. So we're going to get to my awesome guest, Joy Vila, in just a couple minutes. But I just need to take a minute to talk about what happened with Ruth Bader Ginsburg passing away today. Look, I said for a while, like, she was going to pass, like a certain level. Obviously, the media and she wanted to live. She was tough. She had cancer 4 times. But, the last cancer was liver cancer this year. And, they were like, she's fine. And my mom died of liver cancer. I mean, liver cancer is, it's like Jaws. It gets you, you're done for the most part. So you kind of saw it coming. And I think she was holding on as long as she could, obviously, because she does not want Trump to appoint another justice. But she passed away today. And so quickly, I'm going to talk about what that means in the political spectrum. But let me just talk for a second about what it means with her. She just, if you don't know, she was the second woman to serve in the Supreme Court. Yeah, I mean, it's only been 2. Justice O'Connor was the first. Reagan appointed O'Connor. Clinton in 93 appointed Ginsburg. And that's right around the time I actually worked in the White House and got to know Bill Clinton. And it was a big deal, that appointment. She was a really, she was the first Jewish person and the first Jewish woman and the second woman to be on the court. The thing about, and I've met 2 Supreme Court justices in my life. So I went to Stanford Law School. So, I actually have that kind of pedigree, that super law degree thing, where most of the justices go. So a lot of justices went to Stanford. They go to Harvard, Yale, Stanford for the most part. There's an elite little thing going on. You never hear of like a justice from like University of Mexico, not that I'm knocking that. I'm just saying you don't even hear them from like UCLA. They always come from these couple of elite schools. In any case, I met Justice Kennedy, I met Justice O'Connor, and I met Justice Breyer, who's still on the court. And I'll say 2 things about Supreme Court justices for the most part. One, from the outside, you really don't understand what happens inside that court. And I'm not saying it's not political, but it's not political the way we think of political. It's not political like the way politics and presidential races are political. There's a certain kind of both a camaraderie that exists within that institution. And Supreme Court justices, even though they have a lens, a philosophical lens, they tend not to have as much of a political lens as we tend to put on them. So we go, oh, conservative justices always do, conservative Republican type things. And liberal justices always do left-leaning Democrat type things. It's never true, which is why Justice Roberts and Neil Gorsuch have thrown conservatives into a tizzy, because political conservatives and legal conservatives aren't always the same thing. Same reason why Chief Justice Warren, who was appointed by Eisenhower, was supposed to be an ultra-conservative, launched more civil rights type actions and more criminal justice, Miranda rights. All that was from a justice appointed by a conservative Republican president. They don't play politics the way we think they do. And we get stuck in that cycle. And I've called it every time, like everyone's like, oh, they're going to overturn Roe versus Wade. They're not going to come in and make a political decision. Like, I'm not for abortion. I'm overturning it. They look at the law in a really complex, odd way, and they have a real brotherhood and sisterhood. Justice Ginsburg was one of the most left-leaning justices we've ever had. Well, maybe going way back, but in a long time. And she was best buddies with Anthony Scalia, the Chief Justice, who was an ultra conservative. They loved opera. They go out dancing and laughing, playing opera together. Like in our political spectrum now, we can't imagine that. People who are Trump supporters and anti-Trump supporters like throw hate speech at each other and unfriend them. Can you imagine just going out dancing? But that's what they do in the court. But that said, this is going to upturn the presidential election because Donald Trump is going to try. President Trump will try to appoint. Well, he will appoint someone. I'm banking on 7 days max. He has an appointment out like 48 hours. Who knows? And he's going to try to get that through before. Not the election. He has till January 20th when remember, Trump, if he wins or loses, is president till January 20th. And it'll be a close call whether the Congress, again, Democrats are going to cry foul. You can't do it right before an election, which they did before and Republicans did when Democrats tried to do it. Remember, that's the double standard. They all call foul when the other side does it and then they do their own thing. But technically, Trump can appoint someone and he's got the votes in the Senate to confirm him. He's going to lose Romney and he may lose a couple other people. But some of those people who are anti-Trumpers are going to be stuck in a dilemma because their constituents may want a conservative justice. And it's going to be close whether that goes through before the election or even after the election, whether Trump wins or loses. It's a fascinating battle. I'll say this last thing about Supreme Court justices. One of the most interesting things I ever learned was when I met Justice Breyer. And I was talking to Justice Breyer with my ex-girlfriend at the time, and she was an actress. And she made a joke about something from Seinfeld. She'd been on Seinfeld and she'd made some joke about Mary Tyler Moore. Now, if you're young, you may not know who Mary Tyler Moore was, but this is like 25 years ago. So Mary Tyler Moore wasn't on anymore, but it was in my generation and Justice Breyer, who's older than me in his generation. It was the Friends of the 1960s or 70s or whatever, 70s, I guess. And Justice Breyer looked at her and me and was like, what? And she was like, Mary Tyler Moore. And he's like, who's that? She's like, you don't know who Mary Tyler Moore is? That'd be like saying, Seinfeld, and someone what's Seinfeld? And he's like, I don't, get out a lot. I was like, they're not always in touch with the day-to-day. Just sidebar story. All right. I want to get to my awesome guest. Joy, come on and join me. I'll introduce you on screen. I like doing it that way better. And thanks for the comment. Shit just went sideways. Yes, shit just went sideways. Joy Vila. So as I said, let's start with the obvious. You're black. You're a woman.
Wait, I am?
I know, right? Shocking. I can't do that with my hair, even if I tried.
Right.
You are an independent singer, which I'm going to talk to you about because I think that's partly how you can say the things you say because someone can't cancel your cut you from the label.
Right.
But you've had #1 Billboard hits, and you are famous for those who don't know it. By the way, she's got a book coming out, Kick-Ass Conservative. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But she is famous for these awesome outfits you wear on the red carpets, and you've worn at the Grammys, the famous Trump dress. They're beautiful outfits, and Joy dresses up and looks like whatever she wants and wears Trump dresses and gets tons of style press, even though they probably are throwing up at the same time. People's putting the picture in and the editor is like, I effing hate her, but they got to go with it. Right. I don't know if we have any images of her in a dress. I think we have one, right? But we can pop up. But Joy, thanks for joining.
Of course.
And your book is Kick-Ass Conservative. We'll talk about that. So let's start before we get to the politics. Let's just start with being a black entertainer, celebrity, woman in Hollywood. And being period, I'm sorry, Joy, but you ain't black because you support Donald Trump.
Right.
So, I don't know, but, you're
but
just
I'm
not.
diverse. Because I'm Latina, right? He said, unlike the black community, the Latin community has a lot of diversity. But he threw part of me under the bus by saying that. So
right.
I'm not diverse. I don't know. Biden, please tell me what I should be as a black Latina woman.
Right. You're right. At least he does respect the fact that, you're diverse, the Latino party. Half of you can vote for Trump.
Can be diverse. The rest has to vote for Biden or else.
What do you face? Ew, she's a Scientologist. Okay. You know what? Let's just take that one head on. I love a Joy moment. There we go. Let's just take that on because again, anybody who's a Scientologist gets hammered for being a Scientologist. I find it interesting because I came from a religion called Christian Science, which a lot of people said was kind of cult-like at times. and that's what they say about Scientology. I have mixed views about it, but I will say this
about all religions.
Go.
They say that about all religions. So first of all, I'm a Christian and I study Scientology. It's helped me. It helped me get over, I had an alcohol addiction. I had a drug addiction, not as much as drugs, but alcohol. I went through a lot of, suffering and pain as a kid. Actually, I had a lot of trauma, sexual abuse. I was suicidal. I mean, I talk all about that in my book. So it's cool when somebody doesn't understand these things, because I say, no problem. I faced it all. Read the book. But I believe in anything that can help you become a better person is a good thing. And I love Scientology. I've studied it. I have a lot of friends who do use it, and I've used it, and it's incredible. It's really helped me. My faith-based relationship is with Jesus Christ, and I'm a Christian. But the thing is, religion gets attacked all the time,
right.
And that's one of the biggest problems in America. I believe it's a constitutional right. It was just Constitution Day yesterday. It's a constitutional right to have freedom of religion. So no one should be being a bigot because, if you're going to attack Trump, if you're going to attack anybody else, you can't also attack somebody's personal belief systems and
right.
try to claim the higher ground, right? But,
what I would say on that too, good point, is first of all, I find it fascinating how many big names in Hollywood are Scientologists. And, obviously it doesn't hurt their careers per se. And look, I don't know the details of how much control or churches have a lot of power. I'm not going to try to get into that with you. What I will say is, and I've always said this to everybody, even if Scientology was just Ron Hubbard's coming up with a idea on a boat that he thought he'd throw out there, I don't know. My view on religion is a gateway to getting to our higher power. And whether the actual religion, the tenets and all of that, did Jesus really come back after 3 days? Jesus lived, but only 3 people saw him get resurrected. Doesn't matter. At the end of the day, faith is a motivating force. And if your faith takes you somewhere, let's just say to friends of mine who are like, I believe God's going to work things out for me. If you believe that enough, your life finds a way to work out. Whether there is or isn't a God, I don't know. But that to me is the power of faith, which you obviously have.
Well, I definitely know there's a God because he's worked in my life. I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for God. I mean, my life has been completely different. First of all, when people attack me, they attack me for my race. They attack me. They say you can't be a Trump supporter. And you touched on earlier, I'm independent. So I've done all these things independently. No other artist has hit number one, albums, number one, like tours, like touring 35 countries independently and still been able to maintain their political independence, I guess you could say, because I have artist friends who are signed by labels. They say, I love what you do. I wish I could say something too, but my label would drop me or my manager would quit. And everyone else works for me in my circle. I don't work for them, right? So, go ahead. If you don't like my politics, I'll fire you. You don't have to get paid as my assistant,
Right.
You don't have to be my publicist.
Right.
I also happen to work with a lot of great people who are smart, who know it doesn't matter what somebody's political beliefs is. It's how they treat you. And I try to teach that, like, we need more dialogue. We need more dialogue between the left and the right. There's too much hate. There's too much chaos, especially now. There's a lot of violence going on. This doesn't serve anybody.
So, Joy, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, and I'm intentionally doing this. Obviously, anybody who knows me knows I have responses to all of these things, but I'm going to play like I'm an independent. I'm not left or right. I have the left and right in me, but I'm not a centrist either. I'm going to play the CNN question for you, okay? No, I'm sorry, because they don't really think very deeply about most of those questions. So, Joy, but I want you to actually answer it. Joy, how can you as a black woman, how can you honestly as a black woman support Donald Trump?
How could I not? He allocated over $1 billion toward the First Step Act. I mean, he put the First Step Act in, he made it happen. He signed it as an act when it's been on the forefront for a lot of presidents to, want to help in, prison reform and doing things like that. But, the facts are a lot of people who are locked up in prisons are black and brown people, and fairly or not fairly, a lot of that stuff is unfair. It's major sentences for small crimes, that they should have been out earlier, but they didn't have access to. It's not always race motivated, but a lot of times they just don't have the access to big time lawyers that, Chad does, right? Like somebody in the country club does. So it's not always about white, black, but sometimes it is. You know,
Right.
I don't believe that we have a systematic racism in the system, but we have a systematic poverty and lack of education. And unfortunately, Black and brown people are at the bottom of it right now. So
Right.
President Trump, to be, if he was a racist, he would not have enacted the First Step Act, which helps reduce sentences for first-time offenders and different people like that. Oh, somebody said recall Newsom. Oh my gosh, I just got to grab. Oh, that was Taylor. I just got to grab this. This is the mask that I wear when I go out and about. And I get people that challenge me all the time. They're like, why? I think he's doing a good job, this guy in Gelson's. I was like, then you're not paying attention. And I just walked away from him. He goes, are you a native Californian? I said, I was born here, yeah.
But you know, Joy, it shows you how, to me, that whole thing shows you how deeply people's commitment to their view is, whether it makes sense or not. You can't support Trump if you're Black, because Trump's a racist. And when I say to people, but he passed the First Step Act, like no one else did that. Clinton even,
nobody else did
Obama
that.
didn't do it. And that's a major
93 crime bill.
first major criminal justice reform in decades. And people go, no, it doesn't matter. And the same happens with Newsom. If you go and look and you go, look, I don't care your politics. How can you be happy with what he's doing to the state right now? People are like, nope, nope, nope. Like, and
well, they just, because it's their narrative, right? And like also President Trump has said he doesn't support the KKK over 40 times. And so many ignorant people go, well, how come he's never said he doesn't support the KKK? I'm like, just because CNN doesn't show that doesn't mean he hasn't done it. Do some research. I wasn't always a Trump supporter. You know, and I don't agree with everything he says. I'm not a Trump sycophant, but I met this man. I love what he's doing for the country. I love his policies, more jobs, more businesses flourishing. Even in this economy, the economy is better than under Obama at the same time, this time in his presidency. And we're facing a whole pandemic. So Trump has been able to maintain an incredible amount of calm. You know, you wouldn't believe it if you saw the news, but if you talk to individuals as I do, I travel around the country. I'm in Sacramento right now for a speaking gig supporting 1776 and freedom. And it's going to be an incredible rally. It's not political, but it's for everybody. They have me as one of their speakers. So this is something that, like, personally, I love this president. I love what he's doing. And I understand not everyone's going to like his personality. I don't like some things on what he tweets, his personality, but I didn't vote him in to be like my teddy bear and comfort me. I voted him in to enact laws and policies that are going to help me. He also allocated over $1 billion towards historical Black colleges and universities, which supports Black education. How are you raising?
I think he's done a lot for Black people. I don't think there's any question that he's tried to make strides in that way.
More than Obama did, actually, too.
Yeah. And, you know, the thing most Black people will say to me is they'll be like, well, Obama didn't do that much for us. There's a thing about Trump. Here's the thing. And I don't want to get stuck on him too much. And I know you're a big fan and he's a big fan of yours. You know, and I'm a fan that Trump came in. I was like, I like the China in the, you know, bull in the China shop, because I hate both parties. I hate the system. I want it busted down. I love that he went after the intelligence community. I love that he went after the press. I love that he went after all the sacred institutions and was like, I'll go after the military. I'm calling you all out. Trump's biggest weakness is he doesn't seem capable of kind of uniting people. He takes fire in conflict and he takes everything so personally. And that's my biggest thing, that I wish he could just be not more a unifier in the sense of a pacifier, like a teddy bear. I wish he could. I believe there's a lot of people who would actually support Trump if they could get past that part of him that just seems to always be like about me. And by the way, I think Trump's had an almost insurmountable hurdle in the fact that he gets 98% bad media coverage all day long. I mean, the media literally ignored, except for Fox and like Reuters and a couple like BBC, ignored that he just did a historic peace accord that's like the most significant one since 1993. Bahrain, the United Arab Emirates, literally it hasn't happened in 40 years, and they ignored it.
If anyone else had done this, it would be coverage nonstop. But I don't understand, but why they have to be ignoring it, because I think Americans deserve to hear the news where we don't want biased news, you know? Like sometimes I'll turn off Fox because I'm like, that's a little too biased. Right? I'll turn off, but definitely CNN has gone so far left. I'm like, who can even watch that anymore? It's unbelievable. That's why people are watching Rob. Rob show, Rob Nelson Live, because it's a fair and balanced, you know.
Wait, can you say that again?
And it's opinion. Like
Joy, say that again. It cut out in the stream. I got to have that for a clip.
Oh, yeah. This is why people are watching Rob Nelson Live, because it's fair and balanced, and it's opinionated, but they tell you it's opinionated. More people are watching this show, I'm sure, than CNN.
That's the thing. I want people to be opinionated. I don't mind you having an opinion. Just own your opinion. Okay. Just don't pretend you don't have one. Don't pretend you're neutral when you're not. Be like, I have a bias. I'll be on it.
CNN reporter on the White House lawn in the Rose Garden. I don't know if you saw that. It went viral. I was invited there for the social media summit. You know, he only invited like 200 people there. And so he invited me, and he had us in the Rose Garden to hear him talk about different things. He was talking about the census. And the media was so pissed because I guess we took their seats, but we were guests. They're always there. And this one reporter from CNN started screaming and said, "We're demonic." I'm like, okay,
I remember that.
Demonic, yeah. And I told him, be a gentleman. Like, you need to report fairly. And I just kept telling him, be a gentleman. I walked right up to him. I'm like, this is not how you treat someone. And when you report news, you need to report fairly. You need to say that your opinion. He's like, oh, we do. You're not. I said, I'm a citizen journalist. People are trusting my voice more than yours. No, you're not. You don't have copy editors. And my point is, like, I am opinionated, and I'll tell you I have a bias, but you know that. You're talking to a personality. I'm not, you know, a monolith where it's like the most trusted news, right?
So, Joy, let me jump into two things that I want to get to with you. One is, we are in a climate where there is clearly a chilling of speech, particularly when it comes to the right. It doesn't surprise me in the sense that, yes, liberals are technically about more open dialogue and discussion, but historically, if you look, the left has always, I don't mean in the US, the leftist movements have always been the ones that censored speech the most, whether it was communism, whether it was the Soviet Union, whether it was Stalin, you know, whether it was, you know, Mussolini in Italy, China, Mao, like, you know, Castro, like the left has always been about thought censorship. But we're in a time where I know a lot of people are scared to come out and say what they think, and not for invalid reasons. They're afraid that if they do, they'll lose their jobs, or they'll get blown to shreds on social media. They'll get so much hate. They'll get discriminated against for literally expressing too conservative a viewpoint. And that's not just in Hollywood. I have people who won't come on my show as a caller because they're afraid that if they're workers, they're just average people. They're afraid that they will be blasted for saying conservative things.
Wow, that's crazy. I mean, it is a real fear. People are scared. I talk about that in my book. I have a whole chapter, actually, 2 chapters concerning this. One is how to deal with haters. And I share my secrets, you know, having dealt with them all my life, but especially the last 4 years. I'm sure you get those haters too, Rob. And then the other one is, what can we do to be more outspoken? You know, me, I am a conservative. I'm pro-God, pro-Trump, pro-life. And I make no bones about it. But I never say someone else can't be the opposite. You know, I welcome open discussion. I'm like, challenge me, ask me things. So I tell conservatives, though, that you need to use your voice and you need to speak up, because some of the people you talk to may have never heard the other side.
Do you think if enough people spoke up, like I had this thought the other day that maybe to some extent, and there is a shutdown of more conservative thoughts, but that it's almost like the way the media portrays Trump, like it's all negative. After a while, you believe it. That part of it's not real. Part of it's a perception that, in fact, so many people would share your views, would like to share those views. They're afraid to share them, that if more people did, they'd realize bad things wouldn't happen to them. Or do you think if the average person, you know, I know people are afraid to put a Trump sign up because they're afraid they'll get like spit on. You're not afraid to put a Biden sign up. Do you think it's real, or do you think
it is real? It is definitely real. You know, even though I can proudly wear a Trump dress at the Grammys, you know, several years, as I did this year as well. If I go to the airport, I use my Recall Newsom mask, but I don't want to wear my Make America Great Again mask all the time if I'm traveling alone.
Really?
Yeah, because sometimes I don't want to deal with it. I'm tired. I need to get to the next destination. I don't want to be laughed at, mocked, and could possibly be assaulted. And I'm a big girl. I'm 5'10", 6 feet tall with my hair. And I don't want to deal with it all the time. People have such a animosity. If I'm in California, if I'm in another state, it's usually more chill. Excuse me. My voice, I'm losing my voice.
That's all right.
talking. But I'll tell you, there's definitely a real amount of concern if you live in a West state like I do in Los Angeles, New York. But that doesn't mean you can't do something. You know, I'm not saying you have to go out and about and do it, because I also know people who are like, I always wear my Trump shirt, I always wear my Trump hat, and they love it and they welcome it. I mean, the only people that come up to me to say, you're Joy Villa, I get recognized all the time, but the only people who come up to me are my fans, are Trump supporters and conservatives, or people who are like, I don't like Trump, but I love what you're doing. I support what you do. So on the flip side, there is always a way and an opportunity to speak up. And I don't think that should scare you from doing something. But if your livelihood's going to be on the line, then don't do it. Do something else. Go. I have a girlfriend. She's an actress. She's a film producer, and she has an alias, and she tweets pro-Trump stuff online. And she can't do it her own name. So she's doing something, you know?
Okay. So we have a comment, Joy. What about Black people who are not religious? What does she know about that? So I'm guessing that refers to the fact that in general, a lot of Black people are very religious, probably more than white people. I mean, I've been in Jacksonville, like everybody's in church, right? Like you.
Right. Oh, yeah. Hallelujah. Jesus said. And I said, I was raised by a preacher. My
wow,
dad.
That was good, Joy. Can you do that again?
And I said,
that was a good. That was a good.
Jesus, God bless this fried chicken and watermelon. No, I'm just kidding.
Whoa. Wow. Now, you know, but I love that you said that. You know, that's one thing that bothers me too. Like, that's not, there's nothing wrong if you say, you know, Black people, a lot of Black people, they go to a picnic, they have fried chicken and watermelon.
You gotta be able to joke.
Yeah, and it's not, because it's not, you know, it's like when I grew, it's like Jell-O where I'm from. Like, white people in Midwest had Jell-O, you know?
Yeah.
Like, somehow you're a racist if you said fried chicken and watermelon. As if every Black barbecue I've ever been to.
I love giving the middle finger to the cancel culture police. I love being the rebel and just being like, this is what I'm doing. That's what I did at the Grammys. That's what I'll continue to do. You know, I'm not everybody's cup of tea, but, you know, I think that if you're going to hate someone, hate them for who they are, not love them for who they're not. Right? I paraphrase that, but that's how I've always rather been, like, out and proud in who I am. So, yeah, it's a
let's
good
talk
thing.
about that. Let's talk for a minute about what's been going on. So obviously, you know, you made a comment I want to circle back to about, I don't know if there's systemic racism. I couldn't tell if you said there isn't, or I don't know if there is, but you said there's systemic economic inequalities. I've said for a long time, you know, that, and I'm doing a big town hall in Jacksonville in a month. And part of what we're doing is we're, you know, kind of like, you know, so the idea is after the protests, after all that, what do you do to actually make change? Because I've said a million times, it's easy for people to post a square on their Instagram. It's easy for a white person to apologize for their white privilege. You know, I had one of the biggest organizers of the Black Lives Matter marches in LA come on my show, and he's like, I don't give an F if another white person says they're sorry for being white. Doesn't change a thing. And, you know, the idea is you're going to go home to your safe little world. You're not going to go invest in these communities that are broken, that have terrible economic infrastructure, horrible schools, broken down hospitals, too many people in prison, no opportunities, you know, literally crumbling neighborhoods and tons of Black on Black violence.
Right.
That's what's got to be fixed. So when you say there's economic inequalities, I agree. But I believe there's also I mean, I don't think anybody denies there's racism out there. You know, I've had Black cops on who will be like,
of course,
racism in police departments.
Bigotry, racism, prejudice, you know, these are all rooted in hate and greed. Of course, they do exist, unfortunately, but this is a fact of life. I'm not, you know, walking in some sort of bubble. I faced racism myself. I was
going to ask you about that, and then I want to get to this question because it's an interesting question, which is, but first I want to talk about facing racism yourself. But the question is about, you know, economic inequality stems from systemic racism, which I've heard that argument. I want you to address it. But first, so you've experienced racism yourself. What's a good example of where you experienced it? I mean, racism in the sense of not people saying you can't be a Trump supporter because you're Black. Not that kind of racism.
Oh, that doesn't count?
It does. It does. But I mean, you know.
I mean, someone just called me coonery on your show. Like, that's not racist.
Someone called you coonery?
Yeah, someone just said, good job, Rob, and good job, and coonery.
What? Bruce, can you put that back up?
Unless I misread that. But, like, I'm so used to it.
I missed it. You're watching the screen better than me. Bruce,
I mean, this is the thing that people say. People call me a coon.
Whoa,
they call me,
no.
Oh, so sorry. Go Cooney. Oh, my God.
That is a comment. Cooney is where I am from, Oconomowoc. That is a
okay, good. All right, good.
That was a shout out to my hometown in Wisconsin. Okay, nobody called Joy a
Thank God.
coon on the show. But you know what? Some people are thinking it. Some
Right.
people
If I
are
was
thinking
liberal, I would have said that's absolutely true. But because I'm a conservative, I'm like, well, it's a benefit of a doubt. See, I wasn't sure about it. Sorry, Eric.
Right.
I would never accuse you of being that. But I do coony. I mean, I get called coon and coonery all the time. So I didn't know. But I'll tell you, I face racism a lot, which is what a lot of people don't talk about, from other Black people. Before my politics, I was told I'm not Black enough. I don't count as Black. And then because I've dated other colors, I've dated all different races, and I happen to be with a white guy right now. They'll be like, "Oh, you're self-hating. Why don't you want to be with a Black guy?" And I'm like, just because you happen to be a Black guy and you want to date me and I don't want to date you doesn't mean I don't like all Black men. Like, what is this? So, and a lot of light skin, like they're in rap, it's a lot of this light skin talk of, they want a red bone, which means someone my complexion. And I'm mixed race. I can't help that I'm light skinned. But my hair is very kinky. My lips, I say, when people say I'm not Black, I'm like, tell that to my lips, my hair, and my booty. I am very Black, okay? But I'm also Italian. I'm also Argentinian, and it shouldn't matter. So growing up, I faced a lot of that. There's a lot of colorism. It's called colorism within the Black community, which is very unfortunate and holds people back. And dark-skinned women face it a lot too. Yeah. They're not considered as beautiful because someone wants light skin. I mean, it's disgusting. All of it's disgusting. But I'll tell you, I've faced racism where I've seen somebody say, "Oh, well, you're Black. You must know about that." Or like I've been overseas, right, in Scandinavia. They're like, "Well, you Black people do this, right?" And they have assumptions, right? And that's sort of that subtle prejudice. And I just look at it as, if you don't know me, you haven't met me, you have no idea. You're going to have a lot of different assumptions. I've been going through assumptions my whole life. Now that I'm in politics, it's even more so. So you could say that God kind of prepared me from the beginning.
Right.
I mean, I have, my mom's Black American. She passed away and was brown skin, and she went through a lot. She grew up in Detroit, and she would tell me her stories of racism and how bad it was. She was medium skinned, so she said she wasn't too light, so the girls still liked her. She wasn't too dark, so the boys still liked her. And, she was able to speak white, so white people liked her. So, but this was, 40 years ago. So to hear kids say the same thing now, they're not paying attention. It's much more equal. Racism exists, but it's almost as if you have Black people today, like especially young people, who are inventing instances of racism so that they can be a victim. Right. And I'm like, no, the reason you don't have a job is because you're not going to get a job, not because you're Black. It's because you're lazy. Laziness doesn't have color. It's not everybody, but I wasn't raised to look at my race as an excuse for self-responsibility.
Right. So that's interesting. So two things on that. One is the victim mentality.
Right.
And two is what you talked about, the racism, both from Black people. And I think there's a version from white people, which is Black people are put in a box, a special box. You can't be, and you're mixed, but you're not white Black mixed. But I'm wondering if as a Latino Black mix, you still face the thing I often hear people are like, I'm never fully accepted by the white community or the Black community.
Oh, yeah.
But the idea that like Black people, both from Black people and non-Black people, are defined. You have to be a certain way. You can't date a white guy or you're selling out. Your skin's too light of that. And white people define it the same way. You can't vote for Trump if you're Black. Like you have to think and be a certain way if you're Black.
The same
that is racism.
Exactly.
That's a racism.
It's all the same thing. And that's why I believe that for sure there's been inequalities in history. I mean, we have the Civil War was to free Black Americans from slavery, right? We have, we have the fight for Black Americans to even be able to drink out of the water fountains as white Americans, to be able to go to the same schools, which was only that was 70 years ago, right? In the 50s, the 60s, 100 years after slavery. So we do see things were not perfect, and they're still not perfect. But are they much better? 100%. I can honestly say there's nothing you can get as a white man that I can't get as a Black Latina woman. Like there's nothing where I go, oh, I want to do, oh no, I can't do that because I'm Black. Oh no, I can't do that because I'm white. Or because I'm Latin, I'm not white. Or I can't do that because I'm a woman. there's nothing out there. I wasn't raised with that mentality. I think it's child abuse when parents tell their kids, cops are going to hate you. People are going to hate you because of your skin color. They raise children to grow up in a world where they think everyone hates them. And that's kids are going to act that way. Dinesh D'Souza, he's a dark-skinned Indian man, immigrant who came to America. And he said that when he wakes up every day, he could say, oh, I'm dark-skinned, people are going to hate me. Or he could say, I'm going to wake up and people are going to love me for who I am. And that's the thing. You have to will it. We're taking personal responsibility out of the equation. People suck. Mean people suck.
Right.
That doesn't mean that's everybody.
Right. But so to stick to a second, because I think this is where people get stuck, and I want to focus on the race aspect. And again, I always say the first thing, if I were to ask 20 people that say the first thing they see about you, or for that matter, like let's take a tall black guy who's darker skinned than you, they will give me 20 things other than that you're black as the first thing they see. If you ask white people, like they'll say every other description they can. Other than
because they're scared to say that.
Yeah.
But everybody knows. I say
I've done this. No, I've done this as a test. And if I then go to that person and go, no, you all said he looks tall, handsome, this, that, whatever. You didn't say the most obvious thing. He's black. The whole room, white people just go hushed, and the black person always busts out laughing. And like, well, that's obvious, of course. But it is the first thing people see is color. We see gender and color. That's not a bad thing. It's what we see.
But the first thing they see is your body. So that's a part of it.
They see gender. They see.
You can't help
it. They also see color.
They
see color, right? So you walk down the street, people see a light-skinned black woman. I walk down the street, people see a white. I'm a very white guy. I mean, I'm pretty tan, but I'm your white guy,
right?
And there's nothing wrong with that. But I feel like we've gotten to a point where people are scared to actually have a real conversation about race. And the protests have made that worse because now so many white people feel they should be apologizing for being white. They should apologize for their privilege, and which is stupid because at a certain point we need to actually have the conversation. That's the whole point in Jacksonville, right? I was starting to say we're bringing together activists, police officers, churches, and everybody's coming together. Like, what can we do to change things?
I love that.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. We're going to live stream it, and everybody's on board. Everybody wants everyone there. They want the white business community. It's like, let's put ourselves together and talk. But what do you feel like? Obviously, these protests started. There is a genuine, I think, feeling among a lot of black people that there is inequality, police brutality as well. Although, as I've had certain pastors who are black say to me, yes, but the worst is what's actually happening. Every black life in our inner communities matters too, right? So, when you look at it, what do you say as a conservative to the protests? Both the sort of and I don't mean the Portland stuff. I don't mean all the 98% white people protesting.
You're talking about Black Lives Matter.
What?
The Black Lives Matter protest.
Well, I'm joking. I'm saying Portland isn't really about Black Lives Matter. I don't know what it's about. It's all white people.
None of these protests are really about Black Lives Matter, not the ones they show on the news. There might have been some peaceful protests, but they're not going to show that. What's really happening is people are rioting and burning and looting. And there is anger. There is people who are saying, hey, this is not okay. We want to stop this. But they're taking out their frustration. First of all, we have people who've been cooped up for 6 months after being told 2 weeks to slow the spread. Yeah. Right. And you have all this anger, frustration of wanting to do something. They're stuck. Suicides have gone up.
Yeah.
Domestic violence has gone up. I mean, all of these numbers are, I'm not making this stuff up. It's been terrible. Yeah. And then you have that police, George Floyd's, the killing. And I mean, the toxicity report said that he died actually from fentanyl. He was overdosed. Whatever the reason was that he died, that police officer absolutely used brutal force, too much force in holding him down.
But Joy,
let me finish. So nobody disagrees with that. I haven't met one person who said, oh yeah, that police, like black, white, brown, Republican, anyway. So there was no need for these protests because this is one isolated incident that happened. 8 of them have happened this year. 14 happened last year. 22 people who are white were killed by police officers this year. Nobody cares about that. So this is not a rampant issue and problem. Thousands of black men were killed by other black men in the city, in the inner city.
Let me interrupt you for a second. Let me just interrupt you. I don't want to break your flow, and I want to get a caller in here, but I just want to say it's an interesting point you make, and people push back on that and go, no. And I'm not disagreeing that the numbers, the stats show that, but I would put the other side of that is, and I'm not saying this is why most people are protesting, but that there is a sense that there has been a lot of injustice toward Black people in general, and that it still exists, not just from police, but that we've sort of, even the way we design communities to sort of, what's happening in impoverished communities wasn't an accident. It was somewhat intentionally given that way. So there's a reaction of, hey, Black people have been screwed for too long.
Well, that's such a broad statement, though, because it's easy to say that. And yet there are injustices. And someone saying the protests are not about injustice, cops not being held responsible. There's a huge disconnect, though, between the police officer community and the Black community, especially in gang violence in regards to that. And we need to bring that community together, not drive it apart.
Right.
Because 14% of the police office, of police office force are African-American, 14%, 13% of America is African-American. Yeah. So it's not like Black people aren't becoming cops who want to change and do good things. Police are not the problem. There could be issues, definitely, where police officers are acting poorly. They need to be retrained. They're a little trigger happy, but you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. This movement is not about, let's have dialogue. Let's reset some of these injustices. Let's have a discussion. That would be normal and that would be justified. And I would be on board with that. I used to support BLM until now. I see what they've done is burn, loot, murder. 15,000 businesses were destroyed in a neighborhood that has Black immigrants from Somalia and Ethiopia right there in St. Louis.
Really good.
Minnesota. I was just there in Minnesota. 1,500 businesses. Right. So this isn't about justice, because you don't need a Louis Vuitton purse for justice. You don't need
And Joy, I'm not disagreeing with you. And I've said the same thing. I'm simply saying I think there is a valid desire for justice, whether it's these protests or not. I look at the inner cities and go,
I just try to say true, but it doesn't say it's okay to cause more chaos, because Black lives are being destroyed by Black Lives Matter. And I'm not just saying this to you. I'm saying this to anyone listening. They are a domestic terrorist organization.
Joy, let me ask you, and we've got a caller, it's an interesting caller I want to get on, but I want to just ask you one quick thing on this, because this is where I'm pushing down on what I think people think. People hear what you're saying and think, again, back to this thing, she can't really be Black if she says that, right? We sort of joked about that.
Right.
But I'm going to just ask it then directly. Is there a part of you that wishes you were all Latino or wishes you were white? And be honest, or are you, and I've certainly thought about, like people say sometimes you might wish, but I mean, or are you happy and proud being a Black woman who is a conservative? Not just a conservative, because when people go, I'm a conservative, I'm not Black or white. You're a Black woman who's a conservative. I'm a white guy.
I am 100% proud of what I was born as. This is just my body. I love this. Are you kidding me? If I was a white woman wearing that Trump dress, people would not be as upset, because they can just say, oh, well, white people, they're racist. They're all right. But when a Black woman, a Latina Black woman does it with kinky hair and natural curves, people stop and look. So you could say I have a bit of Black privilege. Right. Because we are not a monolith. Black people are not a monolith. And we need to stop looking at like all Black people think the same. Right. All Latinos think the same. We're different. Right. And I am an individual. I've never regretted being born the way I look. I love this. I love my skin. I love my hair. My mom taught me to love my features. I'll never get a nose job. I've never wanted to be white or any other color or be all one race. I always thought people who insulted me, they're the idiots, not me. Yeah. Right. You know, I enjoy. And also I was taught the content of character matters. My dad being a minister, he said, yeah, you can be beautiful, you can be smart, you can be, you know, even kind, but if you're not doing things to push forward society and help others and be truly kind and be of action, not just talk, then all of that doesn't matter. Right. Raised with more common sense than a lot of people. Right. I love that. Let's bring, we got a, Bruce, you said you had a caller. I don't know, he's a role model. I'm not sure what that means. We still have him? What's a role model? Hi.
Hi.
Hey, how are you doing?
Hi. You got the red on?
Your picture says you're a role model.
Exactly. Set a good example for others to follow, and that's what we need in this society today. We need people setting better examples. And I can truly say, from a leadership standpoint, The president that we have in office right now is not setting a good example. And that's not a good thing. That's why the world is in such disarray right now.
So it's all
That's
President
my personal
Trump.
opinion.
Is that what you're saying?
Go ahead. So you two have a conversation. So Joy,
Okay, so the president, you say he's not setting a good example.
yeah.
So I just got to counter that. I think
He's not setting a good example.
Okay, I hear you. So I think he's setting an excellent example. I mean, being able to defund Planned Parenthood, which aborts more black babies than black babies are being born in New York, that is a terrorist organization, in my opinion. I'm glad he's defunding them. Putting women in office who are supporting different races and ethnicities, going overseas and helping underprivileged women like Ivanka does. That's an excellent example. I mean, you can argue that you don't like his tweets. Fine, I can agree with you. He gets a bit mouthy, but being a role model isn't just about listening and saying the right things. It's about doing the things that help the American people, which President Trump has done.
So let me ask you something.
Okay.
Role model. Do you acknowledge, if you heard Joy earlier,
Yes.
she was making the point that, you can't deny the fact that Trump did historic criminal justice reform. He did it, whether what his motives were, I don't know. Kennedy did civil rights. He was a racist, but do you deny that there are positive things that Trump's done that benefit black people that Obama didn't do?
Well, again, when you talk about the positive things that he's done, he did those positive things to show favor for himself. He did not do them out of the goodness of his heart for the people. And that's my whole problem. And when you look at everything that Trump is doing, Trump is all about doing for himself. Even right now with him trying to push this vaccine, that's not for the people. That's so he can get votes coming up for this election. So you got to look behind the scene. And
so why does it matter? What?
my
First of all, we don't know why he's doing these things, but they help people no matter what. So if I give you $1 million, role model, but I do it just for me, do you still get to spend that $1 million? Do you still get to spend that $1 million if I do it just for the PR? Do you still get to spend $1 million? Does that give money?
I don't get to spend it. No.
It will still. The answer is yes.
No,
that money still counts, whether he's doing it for publicity or not.
No, listen.
What he's doing is help American people.
Ask the question. Let me give you the answer. Let role model give you the answer.
Go for it.
If you give it to me, I get the choice to decide if I want to accept it or not. I'm not motivated by money. Character counts, okay? So just because you're doing it and you say you want to give me $1 million, if I'm not with your character and I know it's for a bad cause, just to support what you're trying to do, I don't want your money. And so the American people have to have that choice to decide.
Did you cash the $1,200 check that President Trump gave you? Did you cash the $1,200 check that President Trump gave you? Did you cash that check, the stimulus check? You buy yourself something nice?
She's asking if you cashed the stimulus check.
Or did you turn that back in because, Trump is bad?
Hold on, I think I got a bad connection.
Oh, that's okay. So, role model, thank you for, can you hear us? Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, role model.
Okay.
I would love to know the answer.
Thanks, role model. We can't really hear you, but you're cutting up, but thanks for joining us.
I would just love to have one person say, I won't accept help from President Trump because I don't believe in his morals or because he's doing for the right thing. So I sent back in my $1,200 check. Right. I would believe it more then. It's easy to criticize. No one knows this man's heart. Personally, the actions speak way louder than words. Obama promised a lot and he didn't do a lot.
I think the problem we get in, and now someone's saying he did them for political gain, and I think role models comment, he's mind reading. He has no idea what Trump thinks. And I think we're stuck in this thing where it's like, again, I don't know that motives do matter when you're, Kennedy and Johnson.
Kennedy and peace in the Middle East. You broker peace in the Middle East.
Kennedy and Johnson were two of the biggest racists. And they passed massive civil rights changes. Johnson was so derogatory toward blacks, it's not funny. The stuff he said, the things he thought, but he pushed through civil rights. And at the end of the day, we've gotten in this moralizing thing where it's like, well, Trump does it for political gain. I go, so what if he does it for political gain? If he did it, it's a good thing. I don't care your reasons. I want it done.
Exactly.
Can we do have time for another caller? Joy, you good for a couple more minutes?
Yeah, I'm just gonna grab some water real quick.
Okay, let's bring up Joy's taking a water break. Joy, when she comes back, Joy, we got a little flash of the booty there. Let's see. That's the black booty. That is the black booty. Yeah, that's you know that's you know that's
It was
definitely-
very expensive. No, I'm just kidding.
that was right.
Everybody wants them now, and I'm
right,
like,
right. You're like, no, I got them naturally, and I'm proud. And that hair, by the way, you could, if you were trying not to be black, you would not be wearing that hair. Like, you know.
Oh
that
yeah, exactly. That's the funny thing is like they can't say anything. Women who really deny their blackness have straight hair. Which, by the way, when I wear straight hair, I've done so for a film. I put on a wig just to have something different. I look super Latina, so I could easily pass. I could put on a little accent. I could only speak Spanish. If I wanted to pass, I don't want to pass. I love who I am, and I love throwing in people's faces who try to deny that I have a voice just because they don't agree.
Right. And I'll be honest. I wish I could be black. You know, it sounds horrible to say, like to try it out.
Do you?
To try it out, but I'd like to try being able to be like,
well,
you want to
people
try
are
it out.
faking blackness.
What's that?
They're faking blackness. Did you hear about the women who've come out?
Yeah.
Like they're faking it. Okay, first of all, if white privilege exists, why would you become black? See, because they want to be so special. They want to be a victim so bad. They get into African studies and they teach us, not just Rachel Dolezal, but there was 3 other people who came out this week who have been exposed for passing as black when they are white.
Right.
I think.
And look, I
sad.
think we make too much of color in certain cases. You know, I also think I've always said this. I hate when people say I'm colorblind. Nobody's colorblind, nor should you. But you're not denying you're black. You're not denying your heritage of being black and Latina. You own those and value those. Most black people I know, they don't want you not to see them as black. They want you not to put them in a box as a black person, whether that is you are likely to be a criminal or it is you can't be black because you're a conservative. Either one is a box.
Exactly. We don't want the color to be the thing you see and use. Like, I don't want you to be like, oh, I'm going to support you because you're a woman of color. Like, don't placate me. Like my music or don't. I don't care.
Which gets to those whole things, what they did with the Grammys, which is beyond stupid. The Grammys, the Oscars, that, you know, best picture. Best pictures have
diversity as much as anyone. You know, I do think the Oscars have been too white, but making it a rule and a law is not going to help anybody, because now what if you do a movie based in Scotland? You have to have 30% underrepresented minority. How are you going to do that? Your movie can't win an Oscar. It could have the best cinematography, the best acting, but it doesn't have enough people of an underrepresented minority, therefore you can't win.
Right. And I think what you said, Joy, is where I think we get lost in this, that people often don't. I want to focus on. You can say, I think there is not enough. We do not have enough people winning Oscars. We do not have enough black people getting nominated. We should have more black pictures, whatever you want. You can say all that without following it with, therefore, we need to make a rule to do it. It's not like one or the other. It's not like you're denying there's an inequality. You're saying
I totally see that there is one, and there has been one since Hollywood was enacted. There's a series on Netflix. I cancel my Netflix because of cuties, but you know, there's a series on there called Hollywood, and it shows what would have happened if they would have put, you know, an interracial love story earlier, and they would have. And I love that, because we shouldn't be colorblind. Color exists, but we shouldn't use color as an excuse. So it's just like, racism exists, but it shouldn't be an excuse for things, right? To jump to conclusion. It's just as racist if I say, you know, you're a white man, so you wouldn't understand my struggles. Like, but you have your own personal struggles. Like, you could be like, you're a millennial, you wouldn't understand my struggles. Or we can put anything we want to divide each other. I have curly hair, you have straight hair. I have this nose. It's stupid. We're more alike than we're different.
And here's the thing. And I would agree with someone would say, I can't know what it's like to be a black woman. I can't know what it's like to be a woman. I can know women. I can know their experience. You can't know what it's like to be a man. You can't know what it's like to be white.
That's right.
But where we do come together, and what I think is so interesting is you talked about your addictions. You talked about your battle with suicide, with depression, and I thought about it, and I was like, I've dealt with all those same things, not the addiction part, but the suicide, the depression. You know, I deal with clinical depression, and I think it's the power is being able to come together over those things, right? That you and I, we don't come together over our color, and ultimately even our politics. Like, we come together over our humanity. Our politics, we can differ, but our humanity, we unite. And the fact that, you know, I know what it's like to get to the brink of feeling like, should I still be here? You know, my brother committed suicide. I know it. You know, I know what it's like to have someone do it, and I know what it's like to deal with the demons.
Yeah,
and you have been there too, and you know, people wouldn't see that in your bouncy demeanor. But let's be honest, you're not bouncing off the walls all the time. You might go cry in your bed tonight.
That's right. That's right. That's human. It's the human condition. And that's why I tell people I want to be vulnerable. And I show that. I mean, I do a lot of lives. I've cried on that. I've been divorced. I went through a divorce that wasn't easy. You know, I gave a child up for adoption. I've been very open about that. So I'm pro-life. That wasn't easy. Dealing with drug abuse and all of those things came, you know, and the suicidal thoughts, all of that depression came because of abuse and trauma as a child, and then it just sort of kept replicating itself.
So Joy,
and you stop that cycle of abuse and say, wait, I'm worthy, I'm worth this, and you do something. You use the light that's inside you to help others. It can be very dark and dismal. So that's why I love what I'm doing. People tell me you're helping me. Your voice is important. So that's really the way out, is to help others.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Joy, and we're running out of time, so I just want to kind of take it down this path. So, because I feel like what's missing is this kind of a conversation that connects to people. I don't care if you're left or right watching this. Do you still struggle with depression or the darkness, or do you still battle it? Is it?
I battle moments of it. I don't have it like I did before, because I've had incredible opportunities for spiritual development and change. And I worked really, really hard on this. And thank God, because it happened right on time, just when the spotlight hit on me, you know. But, you know, it's something that I struggle with in a different way. How can I do more? And then I deal with, like, am I doing enough? Right. So it's like this heavy is the head that wears the crown. I mean, I put myself in this place of leadership. I've always gone after it. I've been very, you know, I want to do this. I want to do more and more. So even with the book, I was like, oh, this is great. Then I'm like, oh, what if no one likes it? What if no one, you know, a bit of a panic before I released it a couple of weeks ago. So it's never like always up. You do have downs, but my downs don't get as low anymore. Also, diet, nutrition, and health. I'm in the gym all the time. I'm vegan. I drink water. I don't do any drugs, including pot. I don't drink alcohol. I do things that are healthy for me, and I spend time with my pets and my loved ones.
I'm cutting you off only because we're running to the end of the stream, and what I want to let people see is that if you're out there and you're left or you're right, whatever, if you can listen and see that we're all human, right? You struggle with those things. I struggle with other people do. I think we are dividing as a nation in a way that is this virus may kill a lot of people. It already has, but this virus is a social virus in a different way. It has divided our country in a way that we have never been so divided. And that division is literally searing through us. It is, you know, it's ruining lives, it's ruining families, and ultimately ruins the fabric of our humanity that keeps us together. And I just want everyone out there to kind of know that this is how we talk, right? You could be a liberal and I could be having this conversation. I could be a liberal, right? And if they're not to be afraid to have the conversation, to say what, you know, say what you think, say what you want, whatever it is. And to know that, like, at the end of the day, we just got to lean on each other as people to kind of get through it all.
That's right. That's right. All we have is each other and our incredible gifts. And everyone out there is a spiritual being. They have an ability to take responsibility for their life and to grow out of it and to love one another, bring people together. So I'm glad you have such interactive people and, like, for all different kinds of views. So I appreciate that. And enjoy travelers. Go to joyvilla.com. Check out my book if you like this interview.
Check out Joy's book, joyvilla.com. Bruce, can we quickly pop that on the screen?
Yeah.
Joy, I love your energy. I love your spirit. You know, I love your commitment to what you believe. That's at the end of the day what we need. People, just be committed to your beliefs and stop hating on each other if they disagree. I post in liberal groups and people blast me. I don't know, liberal or conservative. So go ahead, but you know, you're honest about it, and I love that. It's just refreshing. Keep wearing the Trump dresses. Run for office. We're going to talk about that because I want to run a slate of candidates in 2022. I might be one of them.
Really?
Congressional candidates. Yeah. So I want to talk, and I'd love for you to, you know, tune into our town hall. It'll be fun.
Oh, definitely.
Kick-Ass Conservative. Buy the book on Amazon. Even if you don't agree, buy the book and read it. Kick-Ass Conservative. You can get it on Amazon.
Yes.
And you can check Joy out. What's your social handles? At Joy Villa.
At Joy Villa on Facebook. At Joy Villa on Instagram. At Joy_Villa on Twitter. And then on Parler as well, at Joy Villa.
And the website is, there's the book.
Joyvilla.com. You guys get 20% off if you join my mailing list. All your listeners.
There you go. She wants those names. She wants that list. She's collecting them. All right, Joy, it's been great. Don't hang up on me. I want to talk to you for a second.
Okay.
But
Okay.
thanks for being on the show, you guys. Thanks for watching. I'm Rob Nelson. It's Rob Nelson Live.